going to play a game of, are you neurodivergent or are you multidimensional? So I just got off an Akashic record reading with a client, and she was saying, I have such a hard time focusing. I didn't do very well in school, and just like an assortment of other things, and that can really cut at your self-worth and your self-confidence, right? And when I meet with people that are neurodivergent that are also on a spiritual awakening journey, I'm like, it's not that you can't focus, it's that you're too focused on too many things. You got too many tabs open. But that's also because you're a very evolved conscious being, and you're super self-aware, and you're looking at yourself of, how can I be the best version of me 24/7, and you can see how reality works. You can see how everything interconnects and interweaves. So you don't have linear thinking. You're like, okay, well, A equals H, which equals Z, which gives you B. Okay, where other people are looking at life and reality and consciousness on a linear plane. And so that's why your brain is in hyperdrive all the time, and you're just making all these neural connections, which is a beautiful thing, because it means that you're a very wise being and have a lot to share with humanity, if that's what you want to do with the collective. But sometimes we're like beating ourselves up and saying it's a curse, when it can be your biggest blessing. Because if you want to be an energy healer or a coach, or do any type of work like that, you're going to be extremely proficient at it, because you're able to read people at a depth that a lot of other people aren't able to do. And you've probably been doing that your whole entire life. You know, your friends coming to you, people trauma dumping on you, because you see them in their totality, and like, oh, this is why they behave the way that they do. Sometimes that's to our own detriment, because we may be making excuses for people, because we're like, oh, I can see your little baby inner child in there. But that doesn't mean they're consciously meeting you here as an adult. Okay? Even if you can see their sweet inner child baby inside. Now, I was explaining, if you do want to be an energy healer or a coach like that and utilize your gifts in a productive manner, you have to learn how to ground your energy, and you have to learn how to process your emotions, because there's so many people out here that have not been taught that. That is not your fault. You probably did not have the tools and resources that you needed, but we are energy in motion, emotions. Okay, we can't have all this unprocessed stuff up in here, and because that causes anxiety and depression and things. But also, when you are not grounded and you are feeling that anxiety, it's very difficult to tap into your spiritual gifts and your psychic abilities, because those are up in your upper chakras. Trauma, PTSD, and suppressed emotions sit in your bottom chakras. So in order to ascend up into those higher planes and dimensions and elated states of consciousness, you got to clear all that mucky stuff out down at the bottom. And again, if you're new to that, and it's probably not your fault that you haven't looked at that thing or looked at those things, because we're not taught as a society, or we're suffering because of generational trauma, you know, lots of different things. Also explaining that if you have had a lot of trauma in your life of people hurting you over and over and over again, and that's usually from inner child stuff, because your inner children will pull in people who are representors of your parents and guardians. Like, consciously, you know that that's not good for you, those type of relationship dynamics, but you're looking through your inner child lenses. That's what behavioral patterns and triggers are. And so you're basically regurgitating the same thing that your parents did to you. You have to heal your inner children to be able to step outside of those paradigms. But what ends up happening is you can have inner children within you that are afraid to step into your sovereignty and being an energy healer and a coach, because they think the more people that you're around, the more hurt that you are going to incur, which is true for the majority of your life, maybe, but that doesn't mean that that has to be your future. Like, I had to go through that karmic lesson and that core wound healing, because I could not grow in my business, and I couldn't figure out why. And it was because I had inner children that were caught in an energetic timestamp. That's where they think trauma and PTSD is happening to them still. And I had to come in and explain to them, we're not living in that life anymore. We don't have anybody around us. I will not allow anybody around us like that. We either get treated with the utmost respect and joy. People want to be in our energy field. If they don't want to, then they don't need to be in our life. And that's totally okay. We're not for everybody. We're not everyone's cup of tea. And so I had to learn how to become very polarizing and how to hold very strong boundaries and not get butthurt when people, you know, didn't resonate with me or want to be in my life. That's cool. Then it's more space for people that want to. And through working through those things, I did become an energy healer and a coach. And now, full time, work with people who are amazing, beautiful star beams and want to get into their magic, and I'm just surrounded by mysticism, woo, esotericism. Everybody in my life changed. Everything in my life changed, but I had to go in and help my inner children with that core wound of like, hey, you're gonna have to trust me on this. Like, I know that we haven't had a lot of evidence for that over our life, but we really have to olive branch and trust ourselves that we are not gonna have people like that in our life anymore. Okay. And so I wanted to share these different understandings so we can see how everything is correlated. But back to what I was saying with your central nervous system and grounding and your emotions, you have to learn how to do that as an adult in order to help somebody else with it. And when I say help somebody else with it, I'm referring to your inner children. So sometimes we have a difficult time connecting to them, and it's because how are you going to hold safe space for somebody if you're not holding safe space for you? Or how are you going to teach somebody to love themselves, like your inner children, if you're not doing that right this second? So you have to teach yourself how to be a higher self to them, just like your higher self is teaching you right now how to become the next higher self. So it kind of works on a ladder system. That's why I always recommend, if you are wanting to heal anything or up level in anything, look backwards at your inner children and ask yourself, why am I experiencing these things? Where did these things come from? Because if we're not asking why and where, you're not going to get to the root. And you have to get to the root in order to up level and upgrade and get into a new identity and shift onto your most optimal timeline. So I'd love to hear in the comments if you have any questions or what your thoughts are, or if you've been on this process journey. And I hope you have a very magical day.